if you are a professional marketer, content creator, copywriter, it's likely that you are heavily involved in an arm of inbound digital marketing. It is also very likely that if you went to school for marketing or writing or anything like that more than 2 years ago, most of what you know about marketing or most of what you learned in school about marketing is obsolete, which is why you're on YouTube, which is why we read blogs, which is why we search. The rate of change and the pace of change in an industry that is so tech reliant is incredibly rapid. And it is vital that you maintain at least a base level understanding of the entire ecosystem. So what I want to talk to you today is the inbound marketing roadmap. So as you probably know, there are two big branches to marketing. There's inbound and outbound. Inbound is everything that ultimately is magnetic. Most of the time it has to do with content creation, it has to do with owned digital properties, and it has to do with things that kind of exist within the business's realm of control. So I'm going to talk to you about how I would set up a marketing roadmap for a client from day one who wants to focus on inbound. And I almost always recommend that there are asynchronous efforts between inbound infrastructure and outbound infrastructure, but inbound is sometimes the easiest way, but it's also sometimes the most misunderstood. So I just want to start there because I think it's helpful, even if all you do is email copywriting, even if all you do is graphic design for ads, to understand the bigger picture of everything that should be part of a digital marketing roadmap for inbound. So let's get into it. What I'm going to show you is an asset that I created and that I reuse over and over again for all kinds of clients. So at Hire a Writer, we work with a lot of B2B clients. That's really our sweet spot. But this model pretty much works for any and everybody. And basically what it does is I've broken out all of the categories that are involved in inbound marketing. So all of the categories that you have to assess or cover. Not every organization is going to do all of these things, but almost every mature organization will. So for instance, if you've been tasked with creating a marketing roadmap or a digital marketing or an inbound strategy for a startup, it's likely that you'll prioritize a few of these areas and that you'll grow into the others. But I want you to get the full picture. So like if I were looking at a mature organization that's been around for 25 years and I were to assess their inbound marketing strategy, I would very much expect to see every single one of these things on it. And if any of these things was not on it, we would have a conversation about why. Because these are all really, really important ways to magnetize digital properties so that you can generate leads in business. So the first is SMS texting. So text campaigns are incredibly important nowadays, even in B2B, but especially in B2C. And so I would very much expect there to be at least 4 different kinds of SMS texts. And I will zoom in here actually so I can make sure you see it. Texting is a huge digital platform, and for certain kinds of businesses, it's incredibly effective. I would absolutely expect there to be a plan for email, right? So what is the plan for email marketing? No inbound digital marketing strategy should exist without this. Now you would say like, oh wait, but email is outbound, right? Not necessarily. So there's lead nurturing, which is definitely an inbound activity. There's transactional emails, which is something that happens on your own digital properties. There's workflows and segmentation. So above, just a quick note, above is all the information that I would very much expect to have been completed in an analysis phase or a discovery phase, including like CI, so competitive intelligence, including various kinds of business intelligence like market research, go-to-market plans, things like that. Obviously, digital research like SEO, content audits, things like that. And then just, a roadmap for, what kind of content needs to be created in order to flesh out a strategy like this. Okay, so just to be clear, like the persona research and ICP and segmentation and all that should absolutely be done and is part of what will inform the execution of a strategy like this. My goal today is for you to just see the strategy. Like here's the big picture. Here's everything it would take to get an inbound marketing, roadmap off the ground and in everybody's hands. Okay. So email, transactional emails, segmentation, e-newsletters, and even sales and specials. So if you think about inbound as being related to or maybe even serving the CS team, so the customer success team. Lots of companies are really keen on quantifying the efforts towards cross-selling and upselling existing client base. There's usually a lot of money to be made there, so definitely part of kind of the inbound email marketing roadmap. The other is social. So social media happens obviously on platforms that you do not own, but it is very much a way of magnetizing and attracting and gaining brand awareness, which is a big key, indicator of the success of inbound marketing, is how aware people are of your brand and how engaged they are. So definitely a social media strategy, posts, hashtag banks, engagement protocol. You should absolutely have SOPs for every single platform of how those growth goals are going to be achieved by engagement, tracking, and then obviously ads are kind of a part of that. Many people would put ads as part of outbound, but honestly, it's one of those that kind of straddles. Like there's kind of, a few different ways to skin the cat, and the assets being created in an inbound campaign will often serve outbound uses. Okay, so there's no need to bifurcate that so violently. You can definitely, the two work together really well. All right. The kind of mecca or home base of any inbound marketing is probably going to be a company's website. So on the website, you're going to assess things like ClickFunnels and making sure you have infrastructure built for how you're doing lead generation, intake, and nurture on the website itself. SEO obviously is a huge part of an inbound strategy. It's organic. It lasts a long time. It's absolutely worth investing in. When you're in inbound, one of the key metrics that you're always going to be measuring, obviously, is how people engage and behave on the website itself, right? That's a huge part of your KPI structure, and CTAs are a big part of that. So calls to action, how are people clicking on buttons? What buttons are they clicking on? What CTA language works? The analysis of that factor informs a great deal of the kind of content that you could or should create for a brand. Landing pages, lead magnets, pop-ups, forms, and chatbots are all another kind of elements of website that have very much a big role to play in an inbound marketing strategy. On the website itself, I almost always break out the blog because companies can use blogs in a lot of different ways. You can use it for resource centers. You can, use blogs to house press releases and company news and for HR purposes and all kinds of things. So the mechanisms for creating content for a blog and then tracking blog performance are, I think, separate from website, because the way that you would expect somebody to interact with your website and the kinds of people who would come to your website inbound are going to be different than the kind of people who would come to an actual blog post on your website. So as you can imagine, capturing those kind of cold lead searches is very much the function of SEO, and for the most part, most of your ongoing and robust and high volume SEO efforts are going to be carried out on your blog. So I always want to make sure that those are kind of measured differently, because the terms of engagement and what you would expect somebody to do if they came to your blog and then are introduced to your brand for the first time is a very different customer journey than somebody who's typing that company name into the search box, right, or typing in the URL or something like that. So we just want to make sure we're always in inbound that channel differentiation and then the KPIs that we associate with each of those channels in order to evaluate success or evaluate whether something is going well is very distinctive. And really, really good inbound marketing strategists understand that and create really solid reporting infrastructures for all these different channels that I'm describing to you, as well as all the different kind of efforts and content wheels and all the things that go into actually executing on a plan like this. So hopefully that makes sense. It's actually a really big deal, and tracking blog performance is really key to having a good, robust inbound strategy. Events. So I would absolutely say that events can be both inbound or outbound. It's another one of those that really straddles the two. But when you think about if you think about it very much just in terms of the language, right? If you were going to a trade show and you were standing there, you going to the trade show is like an outbound marketing effort, but then people coming to your booth is inbound marketing because they've been drawn there, right, by the imagery or the video you have playing or the assets and all that. So again, there's no need to kind of segment inbound and outbound so dramatically because they almost always happen together. But for the purposes of inbound, it would be a lot of the asset creation, right? It would be all the things that you can plan that don't happen at the event itself, which includes all of like the marketing and messaging and follow-up and all of that. That's all kind of part of the inbound strategy. The next is press. So press, as if you're familiar with SEO at all, is obviously a huge part of backlinking strategies a lot of times. And then there are a lot of assets. So, inbound personnel, so people on your inbound marketing team can absolutely be responsible for things like placement research, actually getting placement pieces, coordinating with journalists, things like that. And then probably most importantly, if we're thinking like true blue inbound, creating a strategy on your website for where content like that is being hosted, creating processes and even press lead generation tactics and things like that happen on your own digital properties, which inherently kind of categorizes it as an inbound activity. So again, it's one of those where the lines are blurred, and that's good because we're trying to, make sure all efforts are very cohesive, but press absolutely is kind of a quantifiable form of inbound marketing in some ways. And then networking and sales. So there are absolutely, marketers are not salespeople. It is not, and we are not business development people. However, in certain sizes of organizations, marketing, business development, and sales have to coordinate efforts. And, if we kind of started this conversation, I mentioned if you're for instance, working at a startup and you're responsible for creating a marketing roadmap and an inbound marketing strategy, all these aspects that I talked to you about are important. Networking and sales is where most of the C-suite cares what happens, right? And will pay attention. They almost can never draw the logic line between blog views and money. And that's where a good, healthy coordination with business development and sales and marketing can ensure that your work as a professional marketer gets shown, that the revenue validation, right? The ROI, the ROAS, the things that you want to use to kind of quantify the value of the efforts that you're putting in can absolutely be best illustrated. So for instance, a huge part of being a really good inbound marketing strategist is qualifying what a marketing qualified lead is, right? So MQLs, marketing qualified leads. They're people who come to your website. They're people who exhibit certain behaviors. Maybe they download something. But then there is always the goal, right? If they're going through the funnel correctly, is to turn them from an MQL, a marketing qualified lead, into a sales qualified lead, an SQL. So that requires coordination, right? It requires handoff. It requires tagging structures, and it requires, workflows to be set up so that those leads very clearly get passed over to the sales team at the right time. It's also very true that many times in an inbound marketing process, marketers, content creators, and all of that are going to be putting together assets, right? So you could call an email a marketing email. You could call it a sales email. It's an email that's meant to be opened, right? It's an email that's meant to do something. So marketers are often very good at that kind of content. And so it would be remiss for salespeople to not tap them and try to take all of their good ideas and ensure that the brand voice is cohesive across all these assets and platforms, and that there's really good, coordination of efforts in all of those ways. So the things that sales, probably will ask marketers to do, and the things that could conceivably be part of marketing, even inbound marketing, include basically asset creation, if I'm being honest. So sales enablement materials that are part of landing pages, sell sheets, things like that. And then the network. So I wanted to end here because this is the coordination with business development. Misspelled coordination. Okay, well, I was typing too fast. So basically, one of the ways that most people are beginning to understand the value of leveraging social media marketing and some of the other things that are kind of inherently part of the digital marketing roadmap is through affiliate programs, through expanding network, through hiring influencers, and some of those tactics. So, if you think about the actual content that you're creating in order to magnetize your social media profiles and things like that, or to, magnetize landing page or engagement or things like that, it will often be things that cause you to reach out, right? Which, okay, outbound, maybe it's a little bit of an outbound thing. But at the end of the day, they become part of a content structure. They become part of your inbound marketing plan, and all of that. So it's important that just like you're coordinating with sales, you're coordinating with business development. You're understanding where they see opportunities and where they're continuing to strike in the market and, pursue relationships and conversations and expand the company's network. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. If I were to say to you, which of these things do you not know, I think it's really important that you shore up, because having a really good 30,000-foot view of all the things that are, part of inbound marketing, outbound marketing, a marketing roadmap can help you become that strategist, and can help you to understand, even if you don't want to be a strategist and you don't want a bigger role than you have, you understand the role that you're playing. You understand where you fit in to the big picture of a company's goals for marketing. And I think that in and of itself is inherently valuable. It proves that you care, kind of about the whole team and about the whole business and where things are headed. And it's an opportunity for you to learn something new and to maximize your value to a company. So look this over. Obviously, you can screenshot it or whatever is helpful to you as far as seeing sumarial statements, and then I'll make sure I put up a blog about it with an actual image of this if you want to kind of zoom in and look around. And there are going to be things that I don't have in here that you would say are part of inbound marketing. Totally fine. Things that I have in here that you'll be like, yeah, no, that's not even close to inbound marketing. I'm totally fine. This is subjective, but I think it's a good starting point. And I think the categories are helpful. And if you learn them, you'll be better equipped to do marketing really well. I wish you the best of luck.